I am Grigoris Grigoriadis. I am the CEO of Italy Lines. We are an international transport company. We make part of the value chains globally and mainly with Europe that we operate. And I'm glad for the invitation, Leonidas, and I hope I will be sharing some great insights with you after Dimitris Karakoulas will go in the depth of the global value chains. Thank you very much and have a great webinar.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Leonidas. Thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you very much, Grigoris and Dimitris, for the discussion and the presentation. For me, I'm an author and the founder of Anthonian Management and trainer, and I would like to join Dimitris, the expert Dimitris, for this exceptional presentation. I'm waiting to join this event. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you, Theodoris. Thank you. And now we can, Dimitris, take the floor, and until you finish, then we will give the floor to Theodoris and Grigoris. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leonidas, for the invitation, being the main presenter of this specific webinar that deals with global value chains. It is a very important subject because everybody who is involved in business is looking to find ways to increase the value that the company delivers, because this is the only way that sustainability might be achieved. Before we start, just to say 2-3 words, I'm coming from the automotive industry. My main job was there. Of course, in education, I've done some things as well, as a professor, let's say as a lecturer mainly, not professor. I'm not so expert in training, but as a lecturer, I've done a lot of research as well. I've done a lot of research, especially in value chains in the industry I was involved, because it was always an issue how we can deliver value and create profits for the company in order for the company to survive. So it was a very challenging invitation for me, coming and talking about something that it is a daily job, let's say, for everyone, as Grigoris definitely knows in his business as well. And Theodoris also, it doesn't mean that when you are an author, you're not looking for the value chain that will create certain benefits, let's say, and deliver value to the customers who are the readers in this case. Actually, now I'm working also with ACME Education Institute, and I'm very glad because I'm still a part of the knowledge transfer in an educational system. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I would like to start with the presentation itself. And as I said, the value that we create is the most important thing when we sit down and we decide which company we need to create and what will be the product and who will be the customer and everything. One of the main things that somebody should keep in mind is how the value is created. And this, in theory, you may find in, let's say, in a word called value chain. Now, what about the value that we talked about? The customer delivered value is the difference between the total value to customers, the value that we deliver to customers, and the total cost of the customer. Many people might say that, okay, what's the value that we deliver to customers? It's a combination of benefits. The customer is not expecting only the product and service on its own. It's not the product only. It is the product, the service, the personnel, and the company image. For example, first of all, I should make a small, let's say, interruption and say that many of the examples I might give during this presentation will come from the industry I was involved in, which is the automotive industry. Now, talking about the four sources of the value that we deliver to the customer, and we said it's the product itself, yeah, the features, and what are the needs that are covered with this product, the service that comes behind the product, because many of the products that we have should have a service behind it. Even the delivery is a service of the specific product. Another very important point is the personnel that we interact with. It is a source of value that the customer receives. Yes, of course, I understand that the future is changing the world, and contactless interactions might exist and things, but still, the contact we have with companies as a customer definitely involve people interaction. So having the proper personnel that adds value to the specific transaction with customers increase the value delivered. Or let's say the value delivered, it's the value that we add to the product itself, the value that the customer understands. Talking about the company image, that's why marketing is spending a lot of money. And this is why, for example, now we are going back to the world of automotive. You remember there were some brands like Bugatti, yeah, disappeared actually. Yeah, but the brand name was so important, and the value behind this name was so important that a big company like Volkswagen Group decided to just invest in this name, because they had already value they could deliver to customers. That's why they developed the company. They invested a lot. They created the proper infrastructure so customers might flow in again. And through this value chain they create benefits and create profits for the company. Now, going back to the cost, because value is a nice thing, but definitely cost is a very important thing for everyone. Especially nowadays that money is very expensive and every day it gets more expensive. It's not only the monetary cost that is the important thing. And if you ask me, I might say that in many cases, a lot of people are concentrating mainly on the monetary cost. And they believe that if they make some discounts, if the price is lower or anything like that, it will create more profits, or they will sell more and things. Okay, selling is one thing, but selling in a profitable way is what is necessary. So coming back to the costs, we have the monetary cost, but the customer also spends time, energy, and there is also the psychological cost. The monetary cost I'm not going to analyze. It's very clear what it means. But when it comes to time, energy, and psychological, I will give you a small example just to understand what it means. Supposing that somebody has bought a car or something like that. I will use these examples because I think that everybody who is participating in this webinar uses a car, so he understands all these meanings. Supposing that the car breaks down and he wants to communicate with the service, make sure that the car will be repaired and things. Now, what he thinks about is the time he will spend without the car. It's the time he will spend the time that the car, the spare parts will take until it's available for the car to be repaired. Supposing that you need a specific spare part and you go to the service and they tell you, yes, we need 10 days for this spare part to be with us. That's time constraint for the customer. That's a time cost for him. Energy. Supposing that you need as a customer and you have a car that needs to be repaired, you have to drive, you have to spend your energy to reach the point there. And going back to small analysis, you might say, oh my God, I have a car. Last time I went there, They told me they need a month to bring the spare part. I went once, they couldn't repair it. Then I took the car back, and then in one day I had to go back to the service again. And they told me, now it's another, it's another part we need to change. So I had to drive back again to the service. Think about the energy that this customer is spending. All these things come to his mind. And then it's the psychological cost, and I will tell you this. Supposing, again, we have a car that is broken down, yeah? What about the psychological cost if the customer starts thinking, well, I went last time to this service, I was supposed to have a car that should be repaired under warranty because it's only 1 year old and the warranty is for 2 years. And they started telling me it's not a warranty issue, it's because of use, it's one thing or the other thing, or you understand. So this is a psychological cost for the customer because he doesn't trust the service. Now, if the service could have the car fixed first time, if the service could find a way to reduce the energy the customer was spending to take the car to the service, if the customer knew that the service will provide him the proper warranty without him having to shout or complain or spending time talking with people just to make sure that the warranty will be implemented in his case. Now, all these things are costs for the customer. So that means even if you deliver a value to the customer, this value is reduced due to the specific cost that the customer feels inside. So what he will feel at the end, that the extra value he received is, it might even be a negative value. So all these things, if you see them in a picture, it's something like this. You see the first 1, 2, 3, 4 are the sources of value that the customer receives, and the lower 4 points are the costs the customer feels. So you have the customer cost and the customer value. The difference between these two creates delivered value. Now, that means that you need to increase this one or reduce this one in order to have a positive delivered value. Now, coming back to the value chain we were talking about, we forget about the examples and the value delivered and everything, and we concentrate on the value chain, as we say. The value chain could be represented in a graph like the one I'm showing you. Every company has specific functions, activities that create this value for the customer. Supposing we analyze a specific company, no matter the industry, you have the infrastructure, that's a source of cost for the company. You have the human resource management office, where you create the policies, where you recruit the proper people to do the proper job. You have the technology development, most probably, where you have the training and you have the new products that you create. You have the procurement, meaning that you find the proper resources to get the raw material that you need in order to create your product, to produce your product. And these are called support activities because they are coming just to cover all the gaps that exist in the primary activities, which are the inbound logistics, meaning that we have to make specific logistics inside the company. We have the operations itself. Supposing we're talking about a car business operations, our sales, our after sales, the warehouse for spare parts, everything. The outbound logistics, meaning how we receive stuff, things and products and raw material and everything, and how we send out from the company. We have the marketing and sales, which is a different thing, service and everything. Supposing that all these are sources of cost, the value that the customer will understand that he takes buying our product, the value, and the cost he will feel he has to pay for that, including all the 4 sources, will create this margin. So what this means is that if we are capable enough to do the primary activities and the support activities in a way that the total cost remains lower than the value that the customer will receive, then this margin increases. It is a difficult, let's say, it is a difficult task, to be honest, to be efficient 100% in everything you do. This is why many times we outsource things, because we find a different way to make something in a more efficient way, meaning that we reduce the cost of doing the specific thing. There are companies, for example, they don't have a human resource management, they don't have a technology development. Supposing we talk about a big business, they have technology centers, common technology centers, and they share the same technology. Like in automotive business, for example, you have companies like Volkswagen, Skoda, and things. The technology development will be used for all the brands. They have a specific center, they do the research, and the findings are used in order to increase the value of all the brands the group represents. So the main thing is that I need to understand what's the value chain that I'm in and find ways, the activities I do in order to create value for the customer, to be very efficient in order to increase the margin, in order to increase the profits of the company. Okay. Now, one major thing, let's make an example like the e-commerce, like selecting what do I do, what I don't do, what I give to somebody else to do instead of me because he's more efficient. Supposing that I'm a company that sells a product, sells a product, and I have to decide what I do and what I outsource to somebody else who is more efficient than me. And why I'm talking about now outsourcing, because once you start outsourcing, then your value chain is being influenced from the value chain of my provider. So that starts, if you think about it, that starts to create a chain of things, chain of a chain of chain values from the company, my company, plus my provider, plus most probably the company that I will use for outbound logistics, meaning I will send the products out. I'll give you another example. One day I decided to order something. It was hardware. I think it was a printer or something like that. And I placed my order electronically, from the page of the company through internet, because I didn't have time to go and buy directly from the dealer. I placed the order, I paid for the thing, and the information I got was I would receive the printer in just 2 days. There was a week. I didn't receive any news. I didn't receive anything. Now, if you think about it, what was the result of this thing is that the company that I decided to buy this printer might have done a great job in the chain value and the way they created value for me, the product, the price, the monetary value, and everything. But the company they decided to use in order to send me this printer, it didn't work very well. So that means that my perception about the company buying from that specific company was reduced. The value delivered was very low, and it was definitely negative because the time it took for them to deliver something I needed in just 2 days was delivered after a week. So that starts to complicate things a bit, because definitely no company can start from creating the raw material itself, transporting the material from one place to the other, to the production line, then take from the production line the semi-ready product, take it to a warehouse most probably, then from the warehouse being transported to the company where it would make the final product, then from the factory The final product might be stored, transported, and stored in different warehouse. And then from the different warehouse, a dealer might ask for this product, and the product should go to the dealer, and then from the dealer to the customer. You understand how many companies might interact between all these activities. And every company with its specific value chain creates a bigger value chain that ends up to the customer as a value. So that makes things more complicated in an environment that is global as it is today. And the problem is that definitely no company can start from one point of the chain and end up delivering itself, the company itself, the product to the customer. And this is why it is very important when you start analyzing things and deciding who is your provider and who will be which will be the company that, let's say, will interact between you and the customer, the value chain that they have and the value they can deliver, and the cost they might introduce in the total cost of the customer should be screened very well, should be analyzed very well, and a company should see the bigger picture before they decide who will be a partner for them. Yeah. Going back to the example I said, supposing that I have a company and I produce certain things and I want to create, let's say, an e-commerce. Now, the product itself, it's my job. I know to do it very well. I'm very efficient in that. I'm not going to outsource anything. Yeah. The brand and the reputation of my company is my job. I'm not going to give it to anybody. So I'm working on that and I'm trying to refine it and make it more efficient. How I service my customers, meaning that the customers call me, I have the phone center, I have the sales force, I have all the people that they program and they, how can I say, they provide assistance to the customer, yeah? The marketing I do, it's my job, I know to do it very well. So I'm not giving to anybody else. Innovation, yes, I am a company that has innovation as a main strategic point, and it is something I'm going to deal with. I'm not going to have anybody doing anything with innovation. The sales itself, online sales, I'm going to handle. I'm not giving to anybody. And of course, the collection of data and the organization of all these data and how I come up with results, it's going to be my job. But there are certain things I'm not going to do, like I'm not going to create a new internet. Yeah, it's not for sure. It's not my company that will create the computers. It's not going to create the software I need in order to have the e-commerce done and the services. I'm not going to create a company. I have Grigoris for that, for example, and I will not create a company, a courier company or a transport company that will make the deliveries to my customers. And of course, I'm not going to create a new bank in order to have the online payments done. So all the yellow activities, I will give to somebody else. It's outside activity. It's not in my value chain, these things. So these things, I have to find the proper company, select who is adding value in my product, and what will be the end result in the value the customer will understand. I'll show you a small picture of how many entities are involved in the physical flow of a product, in the title flow of the product, in the payment flow, and the information flow, and the promotion flow. So many companies might be. Let's say if I am the dealer, look how many entities exist before me that influence the final product and the final value that the customer will take. The title as well, the payment, how it's been done. Yeah. So you understand that the value chain is a very complicated thing. And you need to understand, if you are the dealer, for example, and you are able, because sometimes you are not able, for example, a dealer, a car dealer, can't go back here and check what's happening with the supplier of specific software and specific chips that are needed for the production of a specific car. For example, let me tell you, and this is something that I think Theodoros and Grigoris will give you their insights regarding the COVID situation nowadays. A specific brand, which is one of the top selling in Greece, can't deliver the best selling car they have. They have a delivery time of 1 year. Why? Because the production stopped for a long time because of resources that they needed and specific parts which were not available from the supplier, because the supplier was hit very hard from the COVID and they couldn't produce the chips. The chips were not able to be sent to the manufacturer, so the manufacturer could not produce the cars, and the production lines were stopped because of that. So you understand that the complication of all these things that COVID brought in our nowadays, let's say, ends up to the customer, and this specific dealer of that specific brand is have a cancellation of sales because he promised cars to customers in 4 or 5 months. And now the feedback from the manufacturer says that the cars will not be ready in less than 1 year. So what's the value the customer understands? Definitely the product itself is excellent. Yeah. The monetary cost for him, it was perfectly fine. Why? Because he was he had trust in this product. He said, yes, that's a great product. It's a nice car to drive. It's a very reliable car. I know they have an exceptional service. I know they have a long time of warranty. I know that when I go there, they'll give me a car, a replacement car. So I don't have any issue driving around when my car is being serviced or if it breaks down. But you see, this customer might end up buying something else. And why? Because the value chains of other entities and the total chain values of different companies had issues. And the value they were supposed to deliver was not there. So if I'm a company, I have my value chain, just to summarize what they said. You have to select from different providers, different distribution channel intermediates until you reach your customers. So all these things create the global value chain for the customer. Yeah. And this is what will deliver the value to him. Even selecting a bank that you work with is a new value chain you add in the total value chain. Yeah. You might find a different provider for somebody from another place. So you select a provider from a different country. You check what it means in terms of time, in terms of quality. So if these results to higher value for the customer, because it's, you know, the equation is very complicated. It's not easy. Sometimes you need to be a great entrepreneur to understand certain things. You can't calculate everything with a computer and just take the pencil and the pen and plus this, minus this, and end up with the result. Sometimes the entrepreneur's feeling is something that can't be, you know, duplicated with any machine. And people that understand the value of each company, the value chain of each company, and the value that it adds to a product, and especially when you see a product, you need to see on the long run the future of the company, how it will develop, because the relationship you build with some company that will be in the value chain that you will have until you reach your end customer will influence your future sales. And something that is promising is, you know, very interesting to say, yes, I will have this provider working with me and I will have the other company working with me in order to have my final product delivered to the customer, because I believe the delivered value to the customer at the end of the day will be much, much higher in terms of time, in terms of psychological cost, in terms of energy. So designing the value chain until the end customer is a very important thing for somebody. Talking about different perceptions for the value chain. Has anybody, I don't know if anybody had any experience with, for example, Tesla. Tesla is something that came in the scene of the automotive industry lately. It's a very interesting, let's say, case. I hope I live enough to understand how things evolved and how they managed to change perception in a so stable industry like the automotive one. For example, I don't know if you know that you can't find a dealer to buy a Tesla. You can only do all the transactions you need through internet. You buy the car, it's difficult even to have a showroom and see it. And they don't have third parties as dealers. They want to keep the total value chain controlled by them. It's a different perception. I don't have more information about it because, you know, every company, when it innovates in a way, and definitely Tesla innovated in many ways in different areas, these companies create a specific case to study. And I believe that certain things will change in the future because of what happened with Tesla in the car industry. Anyway, showing again what's happening and let's say in a more easy way to understand, you see it's the perceived value, it's the cost of your value chain plus the cost of all the complementary value chains. And if you keep these two low and the perceived value remains high, then the margin is very high. If you can't control these costs and they increase higher than the perceived cost, then you might lose money and you might not be the one to work in the specific industry. You might change industry or stop selling because you are losing money. Yeah. Now, regarding the price, definitely, you know that there is this equation when you create the price, and it definitely has to do with the value chain because you have the costs. Of course, you have the competitors and you have the customers, how they understand, you have a unique product or not, and things. The low cost, when you take the cost very low, definitely you don't have any profit. But if you set it too high, you might not have any demand on this price. So what you have to do is find your way inside here. The way to move forwards and not going to the high price, because now the markets, all industries are so competitive because everything became global. And you know, somebody might buy a specific thing, not from Greece, for example. Somebody lives in Greece and he wants to buy a product from Greece. He can find a provider from another country. It might be the price, but it might not only be the price, might be other things that play a very specific role. And at the end of the day, I will tell you one thing. My experience says that because most of the companies concentrate on the monetary cost, and they don't understand the difference between the monetary cost and all the other factors like time, as we said, like energy, like psychological cost. They compete mainly on the price. I know somebody might argue that, you know, everybody is looking at a special price. Of course, there are specific markets and specific products that the only thing that makes sense is price. But it's not only price every time. That's why we have expensive products as well. That's why these expensive products, they create higher value in the mindset of everyone. They are ready to pay more for that. Yeah, like if you buy a Chanel bag, ladies' Chanel bag, for example, it's more expensive than a bag that you might find in a local store because of the name, because of the brand name, because of the feeling you get when you enter the area that the products are displayed. All these things play a specific factor, and it's it's up to us to decide what adds value, and we add it in the value chain. What we don't need and we believe we can't do very well, and we will not add value creating this environment and adding this feature, so we don't put it in because it will create more trouble than benefits. Yeah. Talking about the cost structure, mainly, if you have 100% of value, the margin usually averagely is 4% or something like that. Logistics, let's say it was approximately 20, I'm talking about was, because if you look today at the market and you see the prices of fuel, they go so high that I don't know if they will ever stop. It doesn't make much sense, especially nowadays, taking a different direction, like the electric vehicle. I see the cost of fuel is increasing so much. There might be a reason behind it. Definitely, there are always reasons, but I don't know if this race of fuel prices will balance in a way in a reasonable level. Yeah. At a reasonable level. Now, the cost of marketing is high again, and the industrialization, which is the production itself, is almost 50%. Now, you understand it's the positioning, time and place, value of use. What's happening now, though, with the COVID? You remember the value chain and providers we were talking before. A company like the one I said, the automotive one, had a provider for the chips, the microchips they use to create the electrical circuits of the car, based, let's say, in Philippines. That company stopped working. So you see, this is not a valid provider anymore. So the value chain is interrupted there. Another company is not working because all employees, for example, are affected from the COVID. Another company changed the way it works, so the value they deliver is not very good. So it's not an option for me anymore. So there are companies that might have to check again and see how the value chain should be set up again, based on the fact that the COVID changed many things, stopped, let's say, the normal flow that existed before in the raw material, in everything, and created a lot of issues in the flow that created the value and the delivered value to the customer. So every company has to go back again, look what's happening. I had a friend who is selling building material, and he's importing from different areas. One of the areas is China. What he told me, I'm not sure, Grigoris might be more expert to give us some information about it, that the cost for bringing a container from Japan nowadays is much, much higher than what it used to be 1 year ago. And this is because a lot of things changed in the naval transportation with ships, let's say. And many ships stopped operating. So that means that less ships are available nowadays. All the latent demand that was not satisfied during the COVID season, let's say COVID, we are still in COVID, but anyway, it was much, much higher, the problem some months ago. All the latent demand now tries to be rectified, and that creates a big issue because a lot of demand exists for transportation, and the vessels available are not that many nowadays because the companies, he told me, decided not to send out all the vessels they had before. And that creates issues in small companies that they just buy small quantities. So only big companies are able to bring containers, let's say, from China in a reasonable time. The price of the transportation from there for a container to come, let's say, to Greece, let's say, or to Italy or to Middle East is not double, but anyway, it's much, much higher than what it used to be. And you understand that the monetary cost to the customer is changing a lot. And definitely the availability of specific products might not be there as well. So the equation of how the the value will be created and the change that we have in order to create this value for the customer are changing a lot. And definitely the cost structure from what we saw before is changing a lot. My calculation is that many companies are struggling just to make a margin, and the cost of logistics is increasing a lot because of the things and the examples I gave you. The cost of marketing, I might say it's not that higher than it used to be, and definitely the industrialization is much higher because the production lines as we know them before, because these production lines mainly are based on the continuity. You know, there is a flow, a normal flow. If you interrupt this flow, these lines, these production lines become so expensive that I don't know what the end result will be. I hope that the situation will get much better. Definitely innovation is what we need nowadays in order to understand what's happening and to, let's say, generate the ideas that will assist us take the next step and find ways to keep the delivered value as much as possible, as high as possible, and keep the costs constrained without this having much effect in the margins. Because at the end of the day, if we can't sort out the issues that we face nowadays, many companies might not exist tomorrow. And, you know, the market needs a lot of competition for the benefit of consumers. When the competition is not much, then definitely consumers should keep in mind that the monetary costs and most probably the other costs as well we talked about might be much higher. Anyway, I hope that I gave you an idea of how I understand the value chain and what are the main things that somebody might keep in mind when he talks about value chains. And if there are any questions, definitely Grigoris and Theodoris will have a lot of things to discuss and give us their experience and insights. And I'm available if anybody has any questions, just to reply. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Hello. Thank you, Dimitris. That was a great presentation, beautiful insights about the global value chains, how they react. And from my point of view, being part of a global value chain, as I see it from my perception of the business, and you talked a lot about logistics. I would like to, I mentioned some stuff you said about monetary cost. Monetary cost is, it has two sides like a coin, let's say. The first thing is about the monetary money as a cost to lend it. And now we're living in an era that money is very cheap to take from the banks because of the COVID measures all around the world. And we see a little bit of inflation that is affecting also the fuel prices and the total costs of the value chains. And another monetary cost is the cost of keeping stock. That is the main let's say monetary cost of the value chains as a part of the distribution level.
That's correct. Yeah.
Living in a circular economy, as we managed lately, and hope for the future that will be a lot more. And you know, logistics used to have a part that would be only cost in the whole value chain. And we would like, as a sector, as an industry, to thank Amazon about this, because Amazon, what it showed is that it's not the cheapest company in the world, but it has the best logistics in the world. So we're talking about the retail business that is based mainly on its logistic success. And this, as a part of value chain, is very important for us.
If you allow me, just
of course,
you exactly what you say is the time. Do you remember the time, the energy spent
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
psychological cost, which Amazon is adding. So they reduce these costs. So the monetary cost itself doesn't make much sense because the total cost of all these four sources remains stable. This is what makes sense. And that's why our logistics, where you are an expert, and exactly what you said, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, this is the main thing. For example, just to make it fast for the freight market, just to give you an example, the freight cost for a container, for a 40-foot container to go from Shanghai to Piraeus, let's say that is our neighborhood, would be at the end of 2019 around $1,500, and the peak at the peak time, you know, I mean around 6 months ago, it was 10,000.
Okay.
This is a big difference.
So it's more than double what I said, huh?
Yeah,
it's more than double. 10 times more.
So 9 times, 9 times, yeah. And the main disruption happened because of the closed ports. Except from the closed production units, the main problem has been the closed ports and the waiting of the ships. You know, the vessels kept more than 1 and 2 months waiting outside the ports and to load the containers. And this is, for example, two weeks ago, since 2 weeks ago, we've been living a huge disruption in the market of Italy, for example, that I am very active for the export prices, because finally some vessels arrived in Piraeus, they unloaded, and we need to distribute all this Chinese stuff to Europe. And the balance between import and export that is very essential to keep a value chain that is sustainable. This is the main thing that the transport companies see, now changed. And for example, the cost is almost 60% more to ship something from Greece to Europe than it used to be 2 weeks ago. And these are, let's say, regular disruptions of the market, of the value chains, as long as we live in a disruptive
environment,
situation, because normality, I don't think would never come back as normality it used to be, and agility is the new core value of the value chains, and this is what we need to face. Logistics actually participates in the value chains in, let's say, 3 main principles: the raw material, the semi or the finished product, and the end-to-user distribution.
Exactly.
And I would like to mention here that technology is not very of our assistance as a sector, because technology made huge steps in mobile phones and, you know, satellite communications and all this kind of stuff. But in the main transport and the main aspect and the main cost of
and the warehousing as well, which you have as well.
Yeah, we have more efficient systems for the warehousing, but the end employee needs to be always present, because except from the big examples like you know, automated warehouses like Amazon, etc., but all the packing is made by people, and you know, an error in a very automated system can be very, very heavy.
Correct.
Due to the system-oriented operation system that, at the end of the day, cannot point the mistake and
doesn't understand. Correct.
And the transport still remains around 20-30 years ago, and I don't know about technology companies how we're going to deal with this kind of
they will create new trucks which will be electrical.
We hear a lot.
It will be, you know what, that's what the future, I believe, will change, and your dependency in fuel will change. I don't know what will happen with the energy itself, because they were talking, because I come from the industry that is very close to yours. What they were saying was they were trying to create a conductive charging of the cars, create panels beneath the roads. You have an electric vehicle, and while you're driving, there is a charging of the car on the road. You understand what kind of infrastructure, of course, this means? We might not be alive by the end of, by the day that everything will be set up. At least I'm not expecting to be here. But anyway, yeah.
To get a little courage, this project is already active between in Autobahn in Germany, between Stuttgart and.
That's where they started. I know.
They started implementing it, but we are far away from this. And let's, in order to understand more about the value chain that has an end to logistics or in the end user value, let's talk about electric cars and electric trucks. In the end of the day, if we see now the prices of the natural gas, that is the main, producing fuel for electricity, and I was reading the other day that it's almost its price now. It's almost like the gas was €7 per liter. So this is a huge disruption for the market. But the thing is the aspect of seeing value instead of cost. This is for me, and as a company we try to invest a lot in the value instead of the cost, because as I said, even automation has its own costs, and there is no cost of quality. There is always value of quality. There is cost of non-quality things. This is where I think the markets are already turning themselves towards a quality-oriented value chains, and this crisis was here just to make us see that value has more value than the lower cost. And this is all I wanted to add from my aspect. And thank you again for the beautiful insights. And I would like to hear about Thodoris, that is, his expertise is less time junkie as ours.
Let me mute my audio. I have a question for you. I would like to know about your thoughts about the future of your industry. What do you believe for the next 3 years happen in your industry immediately?
It's not a huge disruption to this. It's not a huge disruption. We've seen already, Trikala, for example, is already implementing drone deliveries for medicine. But the infrastructure needed to make something huge and make a difference from the past to the future, from my industry, is big at the moment. I mean, we're lacking of infrastructures. Let's say, for example, the port of Thessaloniki or the port of Alexandroupolis, that is Leonidas, they're already a lot behind the world at the moment. So, I mean, for Greece, at least, we have a lot to do in order to do something new. But I believe a lot in drone deliveries, for example. I think the new disruption would be drone deliveries, that because traffic is a big issue. Traffic is a big issue we need to deal with. And a lot of cities, for example, London has a very strict policy about the city deliveries and the requirements of the vehicles and to make it all electric. And
if you permit me to add a thing, Grigoris just said the proper thing. It's infrastructure that is needed, and of course we need innovation in order to sort out the issues we are facing nowadays. I'll go a bit to a theory regarding the strategy of chaos. When I was giving some lectures regarding the chaos strategy, the uncertainty strategy, I was starting with levels of uncertainty. Level 1 uncertainty, it was a direct future. We knew we are here, tomorrow it will be there. The level 2 was 2 or 3 options. Either it go there or there or there. And that was it. You knew there are 2 directions, 3 directions maximum. There was the range of future, which was uncertainty number 3, and that was like a range in a cycle, one part of the cycle, and you were saying it might go anywhere from in 45 degrees from here until there. And the level 4 of uncertainty, it was the total unknown. Think that you are in the middle of a circle and you don't know where you should look. Every point of the circle outside you might be the next future. So in certain cases, I was saying to the students that, you know what, uncertainty 1 and 4 are the rarest things to find. As it happened nowadays, definitely, there was a point where we were in a level 4 situation, so difficult situation. Of course, it might not have been 100% 4, but anyway, it was very close to that. Who changes the future is a shaper. This is a positioning of a player in a market who is the leader. You mean leader in money, leader in power, or anything. So this leader, when you have such uncertainty situations, he creates the way for others. You said Amazon. Amazon has huge plans in how logistics will be made in the future. And definitely what he is planning is giving ideas to people on how they should follow. So the important thing now is to follow a strategy which is being a follower of the leader and not being in the mass of 80% at the end of the day that will not have understand what happened, and they will find themselves outside the market itself without any company at all. So what Grigori said was very important about the Amazon and the transportation. It's changing the direction. It's autonomous drive. You hear one way, autonomous drive exists. Google is creating vehicles. Amazon is creating balloons on the air with drones that will deliver to certain areas, and it will move and reduce the warehousing cost. Instead of having a building which has a specific cost per cubic meter, I will take you to the air. I don't pay any rent there. There is no surface I occupy. I just have my balloon. I have one balloon per country. I have the power to achieve it. And I have 1,000 drones on the balloon, and every day it comes down from the air to the direction and up. And, you know, these are the things that will happen in the future, definitely, Grigori. So we should start thinking about that. Huh?
I think science fiction is closer to real life than ever.
Yeah,
but don't forget, however, that the example of the leader is not always applicable everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
So we just need to take the good insights and being adaptive. This is the main clue of the after COVID situation. Being adaptive, being agile, and being able to interpret it.
Yeah.
The main let's say innovation that is out there available for everybody. We have never been in an era that has so much innovation and new things to try applicable to everybody.
Yeah.
If we see also the design of the new cars, we'll see how near is to the future movies, the new cars. It's impressive. It's very impressive. Grigoris, I would like to ask you, because you are an expert and your knowledge is very important, about the warehouses, the Athena and Thessaloniki. Will go to the autonomous and wireless and all this stuff for the future and digital.
Yeah, thank you for the question, because it's a funny thing about warehouses. And for example, it's been 15 years since I visited the Hanover. It's the biggest exhibition in the world about logistics. It was 15 years ago, and the Germans were already talking about RFID. You know, RFID is a tag that was about to be entered in all commodities, and once they entered the warehouse, they would be all automatically read, etc., etc., etc. And this idea, after 15 years, I must tell that has not been applied in any warehouse at the big scale, let's say. So there are two different things. It's 3PL, that is third-party logistics, the outsourcing part that Dimitris talked about, and it's the first PL, the logistics the industrial companies or the commercial companies do for themselves. Automation is very important. It's very important, but it has a very big defect. It requires economy of scale.
And a lot of cost also.
The investment cost is big, but there is a lot of value deriving from this investment. But the main thing is the economy of scale. We need to succeed. And I heard the minister of Georgiadis the other day that talked about that small companies will not be able to do it by themselves, and we need to enter an era of mergers and acquisitions and synergies and all this kind of stuff. This is all about that the technology investments and the big things to be done, because even if you have technology innovation for 1 user to 10 users, not that different in the end of the day. And small companies will face a big challenge in the few years. Stay alone, being heads of themselves, or participating in synergies. 2 mind sparks ago, we talked about being 100% of a small value or 10% of a big value. I think Peter talked about this. And I think it's coming. It's coming now in front of us. The necessity of being part of something bigger than our small ego. Let's say it like this, because
if you allow me just to say one thing, yeah, this is what I meant when I said we need competition in the markets, and it's for the benefit. And this competition, as it goes with so much technology and huge investments in order to achieve, because you will find yourself one day having such basic costs of operations that will take you out of the market, because somebody else has the possibility of investing and creating specific benefits to the final product, using either time, either monetary cost, or anything, because he will have the money to do that. And somebody who doesn't will still be outside of the market value of the price of the product. Yeah, the problem is you need to identify the market again and find if there is any space in the existing market that your product might have specific features that will be exactly suitable for a small number of people. Definitely, I agree with you, Grigoris, that there is going to be a lot of change in the world, and mergers and acquisitions will change the landscape, the competitive landscape. And we will face definitely changes in price, in time, in place, in everything. And we will be obliged to follow the future. The thing is that how, yeah.
One final thing that, in my point of view, being competent is not about the great idea or the great innovation by itself. It's being able to arrive there first. And if we see the big companies, the leaders, they didn't have any big, total out of the blue idea that they implemented in their services or operations. They just went there first, and being fast in order not to being outdated, because being outdated is a very big fear of many of the companies. And being fast is very important, more important than ever.
But I think one important point is that what leader try to do for the next day, the leader of the industry. So it's very important for us to see the leader, the leader, what would try to do for the next day, I think.
Petros is asking a question
Petros
or something.
His hand or something, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I couldn't resist.
That's great. That means we did a nice job talking about the subject.
We have a nice and very dynamic company. So
We don't hear
comment only. Well, uncertainty.
Mr. Soukoudias, you can turn on your camera if you wish. You're allowed.
Sorry, thank you. I'm not so good to be to appear in the screens, but
you look perfect. You look
thank
perfect.
you for your passion. Well, uncertainty. I will stop in the two categories, and all of them have to do with a cycle. Either you select a sector, how small or how big it is, it depends, and then you have the whole cycle and the whole environment. Uncertainty, most of us think that as the digital technology expands and conquers everything, that this will cover uncertainty. This is wrong, to my opinion. Uncertainty will go together with the growth. Uncertainty will prevail in a lot of daily actions, and this is something that will stop the guys that get the big decisions or the hard decisions to move that way or the other way. Going to another comment for the guys that take decisions. In order to be able to get decisions in today's modern times, you should have adopted the digital culture. You cannot understand or explain things, so you cannot plan at your strategic level, and then the lower levels will do the same thing, but more in detail. So you should spend time and money in educating yourself at the beginning, and all the guys that are nearby you, and they perform management. Otherwise, you cannot understand and you cannot exploit the characteristics of the new technology, since the most strong characteristic of the new technology, at least in industry, is the continuous and often changes. And the requirement, the operational requirement is how fast you can adjust your day to the dangers that is coming outside, so you can face it effectively. So we have to see a lot of things, and we have to know to be familiar with new things and new actions. So my perception is that each one of the guys that manage a big company should have in priority a book. Let me say, it's a digital, of course, but I call it a book that will say risk number X, action, or action 1, action 2, action 3. That was the strategic plan that everyone had, all the organization, the army, etc., national systems, how do you react? So you should have that, and you should perform risk management. It's not a luxury, it's a need, it's an operational requirement. And the last one for Grigoris. I have seen some companies, small companies, to get awards from the European Union using or developing and using autonomous vehicles for deliveries. For the time being, if we forget Amazon and some other companies close to this, it is too early to speak in the level of Grigoris' business, that they can use autonomous without driver vehicles. We need more time to think, to create the infrastructure, because the infrastructures required are very complex for the time being. But there are a lot of good and nice R&D projects in the European Union that will contribute in that direction. Well, thank you very much. It was nice to hear you all.
Nice hearing you, Petros.
Petros is always great in adding his,
point of view.
Points. Small but very essential. Well, Leonidas.
So Are we, Thodoris, have you finished your input?
Oh, I would like to talk about two last words about the future. I wrote some thoughts, and I have a survey for Ernst & Young. For the future, I believe for the future of supply chain is digital and autonomous. The pandemic has indeed accelerated many pre-existing trends, and supply chain is no exception. 64% of supply chain executives says digital transformation will accelerate due to the pandemic. The race is on for the digital and autonomous and automation. 52% of executives says that the autonomous supply chains, robots in warehouse, I said before, and stores, driverless trucks, delivery drones, and fully automated planning will be here by 2025. However, simply digital technologies is here. It's also need connecting supply chain technologies across planning, procurement, manufacturing, and logistics that work beyond the organization four walls. We can think about autonomous operation in terms of lights out, hands-free, and self-driving. Organization use AI technologies across to the end-to-end supply chain to help more predictive, prescriptive decision, and exactly responding to a change in customer demand seen instantly by the entire value, so they can collectively adjust supply plans and production schedules immediately. Digital and autonomous technology will help to make people's jobs easier and supply chains more efficient and optimized. I would like also to tell, but Grigoris is more expert about that, about the employees. The employees. Many employees were asked to work from home. Others, especially in factory settings, had to adapt the new requirements for physical spacing, contact tracing, and more personal protective equipment. Industrial products and high-end high-tech manufacturing companies are investing in technology to reduce employers' exposure to COVID-19 in more labor-intensive industry. We already see big changes are on the horizon for supply chains. The Executive for Supply Chain surveys indicate that efficiency and reskilling supply chains worker will be top priorities in the next 3 years. These findings are not surprising, as a cost optimization in the supply chains will always be a focus, even in the face of building out additional resiliency. Thank you very much.
I need to add something to Theodoris, because the employee issue, you all read about the UK and the fuel crisis in the UK. It's all because of lack of drivers. And lack of drivers is all around Europe. And the flow of drivers, since it's a profession that can be applied everywhere. I mean, a driver is not a 9-to-5 job or a strictly one country job. So Europe is now facing the biggest problem ever with drivers. Drivers' salaries have raised more than 20-30%. And East Europe, that used to supply West Europe with drivers, now is absorbing its children back. And we're going to face a very strange future close.
I believe that since somebody in any industry, of course, it's very theoretical what I'm going to say, but I will give it as an example. I was in Nigeria with Dr. Maduka. He was the owner of a huge business I was a GM for. And we were talking about the next plans, because what he didn't had any issue with, what he didn't lack at all, was money. He had money to invest. And that's a big thing to do. We were talking about investments. I was like, Dr. Maduka, I was saying, listen, if I were in your shoes, what I would have done, first of all, what are we lacking? Expert technicians. Because what you have there is either local guys from Nigeria, which are not properly trained, who are not properly trained, who doesn't have the mentality that you want to have in your workshop, and the sense of quality they have is not the proper. And you are obliged to bring 2 or 3 people from Europe every time who come here. They don't like the culture, they don't like the country, and after 1 or 2 years they go away. And because of the situation as it is now, you have a conflict of cultures, and these guys will never produce the result that you brought them for. Now, what I'm suggesting, I said, why don't we build a technical university, automotive technical university? So we produce service managers, guys for warehousing, technicians, supervisors, drivers, everything that we need. And we create the university, we bring people in, and we keep the best talent in. The best students that we will have, they will have a future job with us. We will build our culture, we will build everything. Now, the second one, of course, it was a racetrack in Nigeria. That was my plan. But anyway, none of these plans were taken forward because I couldn't stand living much in Nigeria. So after my contract, the first contract expired, although I was offered to remain there with a better contract, I said, no. I passed depression in Nigeria, to be honest, and that left me some signs in my social interactions even today. So yeah, it was better I moved. But anyway, what I'm saying is that companies, when they see gaps, future gaps, they should prepare in a way that, I don't know, it might be we educate drivers. I don't know if even the country, if you have some influence in decision-making in our country, we might find ways just to produce trained expert employees. And if you remember in my presentation, I was mentioning that one of the values that somebody gets is the personnel value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you for your input.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. I would like to add one data about the survey of Ernst & Young, and Grigoris knows better that, I think. Only 2% of the companies, according to a global survey of Ernst & Young, it's not surprised that only 2% of companies who respond to the survey said they were fully prepared for pandemic. So only 2% it was ready.
Well, I think it was 0.something% ready for the pandemic, but there is always someone better prepared than you. But just to end my insights, I would like to add that value chains are very connected with supply chains, but value chains is not all about moving stuff back and forth. It's we need to face a more social dilemma with the global value chains. I mean, we all like good products and cheap products, but cost cutting doesn't make always for the end user being cost effective. And socially, I think global value chains have a lot of work to do by where they do the production, how they value the value of the production, how they value the value of the worker, how they value the value of the driver. We need to decide big things as a society about global value chains, because we all wear shoes made in Taiwan. We never knew if there was some child doing our shoes, and responsibility is a very big thing to see. It's like responsibility in the supply chains, that no driver can drive more than 9 hours a day. There are a lot of things to
And
say.
no employee should work more than 8 hours a day. And if you work more, you need to take some breaks and everything. Yeah.
I don't know if this I don't know if this is applied everywhere, but
That's what I was telling you, Theodore, yesterday.
Yes.
thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.
Okay, me too. I'm not sure if anyone wants to ask any question. I think we are about to summarize our meeting. It was amazing. From my side, I can say that it was amazing hearing all of you and having you in one panel. Thank you all. Thank you all for your input.
Very much. Thank you very much
Thank you, Leonidas. Thank you.
for the invitation.
Very welcome. I hope to have a chance another time with SEKEE or other platform to have.
Thank you, Dimitris, for an exceptional presentation. And
Thank you, Dimitris.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being together and having this excellent discussion. And thank you, Leonidas, for inviting me for this webinar to express my ideas about the value chain. Thank you so much.
thank you, Petros, for your
General,
Have a nice day.
everybody.
bye-bye.